The first time Viserys Targaryen dreamed of fire, he woke with the taste of ash on his tongue. He lay on a pallet of silk pillows that did not belong to him, in a room far too rich for a beggar king, and stared up at a ceiling painted with fat pink cherubs and gilded vines. Outside the open shutters, Pentos breathed and muttered in the distance. Waves slapping stone, distant bells, a dog barking madly at nothing. Moonlight limned the edges of the room, turning the silks and carpets and jeweled lamps into pale ghosts of themselves. His heart hammered as if he had been running. For an instant he expected to feel heat, to see the black stone of the Red Keep, to hear his father screaming, his brother's blood boiling on the floors of the throne room. Instead, there was only the gentle night breeze smelling of salt and dead fish and the faint spice of Illyrio Mopatis's perfume lingering in the draperies. He was shaking. "I am the dragon," he whispered to the darkness, because it soothed him. "I am the dragon, and I will take back what is mine." In the dream, he had walked through dark halls full of whispers and shadows. Great doors had opened before him, doors of blackened oak with iron bands glowing red, and beyond them lay not the throne room he remembered from half-remembered childhood, but a cavern of obsidian where rivers of molten gold ran in slow, gleaming streams. A figure had waited for him on a throne of charred bone, faceless and crowned with flame. His hand had stretched toward him. "Come closer, son of fire." He had gone closer. He always went closer. There was never anywhere else to go. The flames had risen like a tide. He remembered the way they had rushed over his bare feet, not burning but biting, filling him, hollowing him out. He remembered screaming, not in pain but in exultation, because he could feel something open inside him, some iron door that had always been bolted shut. He had felt the heat pour in, as if his blood were being replaced with molten brass, and in the fire he had seen 1,000 images. Dragons over black waves, towers collapsing in showers of sparks, a great black shadow crossing an orange sky, a woman in a red dress, standing atop a pyramid of skulls, lifting a sword of living flame. And then he had woken. He pushed himself upright, breathing too fast, sweat cooling on his skin. He had gone to bed clothed, because he never trusted Illyrio's servants not to slip in and look at him, and now the linen clung to him like a second skin. The coals in the hearth were almost dead, only a faint reddish smolder in the ash. He stared at them. He had never told Daenerys about the dreams. There were things you did not lay upon a little sister who had already had too much laid upon her. Besides, if he spoke of them, they might sound foolish, and he had nothing left but his name and whatever secrets the gods chose to give him. He would not share those. The dying coals pulsed gently. They were almost black, a faint heart glow in the center. He knew, in a way that felt less like knowing and more like remembering, that if he reached out to them, they would answer. "You are drunk on Illyrio's sweet wines," he told himself. "You have eaten too much sugared dates. Dreams are nothing. Once you dreamed you were flying over kings, landing on Balerian's back, and woke up curled around a cracked chamber pot." Still, his hand moved. He slid off the bed, the marble cool beneath his feet, and crossed to the hearth. Someone had left a poker leaning against it, carved ebony handle glistening faintly. He ignored it. He knelt and stretched his hand out, palm hovering over the ash. The heat licked his skin. It was weak, fading, but he could feel it. It pricked at the old calluses on his fingers, the ones his father would have sneered at if his father had ever seen him trying to wield a practice blade like a half-starved squire instead of a prince. He thought of the figure on the throne of bone. "Come closer, son of fire." It was a stupid thought. He hated himself for even thinking it. But the anger was familiar and comfortable, and it steadied him. Anger had always steadied him. "I am the dragon," he whispered, and pressed his palm flat into the ash and embers. He expected pain. He braced for it, jaw clenched, breath held. There had been a time when he had tried to teach himself not to fear pain, taking a knife to his own arm and watching the line of red well up, pressing his hand to a candle flame until the blister rose. The dragon does not fear fire, he would tell himself through his teeth, eyes stinging. The dragon does not scream. He did not scream now. because there was no pain. Heat surged up his arm, alive and sharp, but it did not burn. It felt as if the fire had been waiting for his touch. The coals brightened under his hand, an ember flaring from dull red to orange, a little tongue of blue fire curling between his spread fingers. Viserys jerked back with a strangled breath. The ember went dark again, but not before he saw clearly that it had risen to meet him, as if his hand had dragged the life back into it. He stared at his palm. There were no blisters, no reddened skin, only a smear of gray ash and the faint tremble of his fingers. Outside, a bell began to toll somewhere in the city, slow and measured. He hardly heard it. Slowly, as if in a trance, he reached toward the ash again and dragged his fingers through it. The embers responded, tiny sparks winking to life where his skin brushed them, following the path of his hand like children chasing their mother's skirts. The sound slipped out of his throat, half laugh, half sob. The dragon does not fear fire. For the first time in years, the words did not feel like a lie. In the morning, Illyrio found him standing before the cold hearth, staring at his own hands as if it were the first time he had seen them. The Magister's steps were soft despite his bulk. "My prince," he said, his voice oiled with courtesy. "You did not come down to breakfast. I took the liberty of sending for some sweet wine and hot bread. It would not do for the future king to grow thin." Viserys turned slowly. The light from the window framed Illyrio in gold, catching on his rings and the jewels stitched into his robe. Viserys was suddenly acutely aware of his own plain linen, his bare feet, the ash under his nails. "I couldn't sleep," he said. His voice sounded raw. "I had dreams." "Ah." Illyrio's smile was sympathetic and entirely false. "Dreams of home, no doubt. The dragon dreams, yes? The books say your line is prone to them." Viserys swallowed. "Books say many things." Illyrio's eyes were sharp in the folds of his face. "Indeed they do, yet dreams are powerful. The Red Priests of the Lord of Light would tell you so. There is one in Pentos at the moment, a holy man from Volantis. They say he can see the future in the flames." He gave a little shrug, as if to show how little store a worldly man put in such nonsense. Of course, men say many things. Fire, Viserys thought. He remembered the coal rising to meet his hand. "Bring him here," he said. The words surprised even him. Illyrio's brows rose, fat caterpillars leaping. Then they flattened back into their accustomed complacency. "If it pleases my prince," he said at once, "I shall send a carriage." It may take some time to convince him, but gold is a language even the gods understand. Viserys almost smiled. It felt rusty, like a hinge that had not been oiled in too many winters. "Tell him," he said slowly, choosing the words as if they were stones he might stumble on. "Tell him that the blood of the dragon commands him." Illyrio bowed, and if there was a flicker of unease in his little eyes, Viserys did not notice. Daenerys found him later on the terrace, staring out over the rooftops of Pentos as if he could will the city to fall away and reveal King's Landing beyond. The wind tugged gently at her pale hair. Her eyes, when he turned to them, were wary. "You didn't shout last night," she said. "What?" He blinked. "Your dreams," she said. "You always shout. Sometimes you say father's name, sometimes Rhaegar's, sometimes mother's. You curse the usurper. Last night you were quiet." Heat crept up his neck. "Do you listen at my door, Daenerys?" Her shoulders tensed. "Sometimes I hear you from my bed." He had never remembered shouting. He imagined his own voice echoing down the polished halls of Illyrio's manse, thin and broken. The thought made him want to strike something. "Dreams are nothing," he snapped. "I dream of what was stolen from us, of what I will take back. You would not understand." She lowered her eyes as she always did. "Yes, Viserys." He almost left it there. That was their habit, after all. His cruelty, her silence, the dance they had learned in exile. But the image of his hand in the ashes hovered behind his eyes like an afterimage of lightning. "Do you ever dream of fire?" he asked abruptly. Daenerys frowned. Sometimes I dream of the house with the red door, she said, and the lemon tree, and the sea. I don't dream of fire. Of course she doesn't, he thought a little savagely. She was born on a storm, not in fire. The dragons belonged to him. Remember, he said, because it came to his tongue and felt right there. Fire is ours, Danny. Ours by right. No one can take that from us. She glanced at him quickly, something troubled in her eyes. But whatever she might have said died on her lips when Illyrio's servants came to hail them to yet another feast in honor of Khal Drogo. The Red Priest arrived at sunset. Viserys watched from a lattice screen as the man crossed the marble courtyard, his shadow stretching long in the last light. He was not what Viserys expected. In his mind, Red Priests had always taken his father's shape, mad and wild-eyed, shrieking prophecy about wildfire and traitors. This man was tall and spare, his hair close-cropped and iron gray, his skin the warm brown of the summer sea. His robe was the color of old blood, and a heavy gold disc in the shape of a sun hung at his throat. His eyes were dark and deep, and when he lifted his head as if he could feel Viserys' gaze, there was a weight in them that made the prince's mouth go dry. Illyrio met the priest in the foyer, his laugh booming. "Most honored Moqorro," he gushed. "You do my humble house great honor. The Lord of Light directs my steps," the priest said. His voice was low and even, with the faintest lilt of Volantis. "You told me you had fire to show me. More than fire." Illyrio turned toward the lattice. "My prince, will you receive our guest?" Viserys stepped out. He had taken care with his appearance, choosing the least threadbare of his tunics, the one with the little scarlet dragon embroidered at the collar. He held himself as he imagined Rhaegar would have done, chin high, shoulders back. Let the fat man see a king. Moqorro's gaze swept over him and did not linger on the worn cloth or the too-thin frame. It paused on his face, on the odd violet of his eyes, on the pale hair that still fell in tangles no matter how often he brushed it. Then it moved, slowly, to his hands. "You have touched the fire," the priest said. The skin on Viserys' arms prickled. "I am the dragon. You are a man," Moqorro replied. "The Lord of Light may make use of you, or he may not. It depends on whether you are willing to be used." Illyrio chuckled anxiously. "My prince has great dreams." "Dreams?" Moqorro murmured, and in the word Viserys heard something other than Illyrio's flattery. He heard recognition. "I dreamed of a hall of bones," Viserys said before he could stop himself, "and a throne made of blackened skulls. Flames spoke to me." Moqorro's head tilted a fraction. "And what did they say?" Viserys hesitated. The truth felt dangerous, like standing on the prow of a ship in a storm. Yet if he lied, what was the point of this charade? "They called me Son of Fire," he said. "They said to come closer." "And did you?" There was the faintest curve at one corner of Moqorro's mouth, a ghost of amusement. "I always do," Viserys said. He heard the bitter edge in his own tone and let it stand. "No one ever gave me a choice before. Why should fire?" Moqorro studied him. "You have his blood," he said at last. "The burnt king, the one they called mad." Viserys stiffened. "My father was no." He heard the voice of the flames. The priest went on as if Viserys had not spoken. "And he misunderstood. He saw the shadows of war and cried that all must burn. He saw the end of things and thought it meant burning them himself." He took a step closer, and the scent of smoke came with him, though there was no brazier lit in the cool marble hall. "Fire shows many things, Prince. Not all of them are meant to be obeyed." "I am not my father," Viserys said through his teeth. "No," Moqorro agreed. "But you are not your brother either. You are something else." His gaze sharpened. "Show me." Viserys' mouth went dry. "There is no fire," he said. "Only lamps. The Lord's true servants carry fire with them," Moqorro said calmly. "There is always fire. Close your eyes. I am not a child to be led through mummers' tricks. And I am not a mummer." The priest's voice did not rise, but something in it made the hairs on Viserys' arms stand up. "Close your eyes, Viserys of House Targaryen." He did. It felt foolish and vulnerable, standing in a stranger's hall with his eyes shut. But he had shut his eyes for worse men. For some reason, the thought of disobeying this one felt like stepping off the edge of a cliff. "Breathe," Moqorro said quietly. "Think of the dream, the Hall of Bone, the throne, the fire." Viserys tried. He had never been good at stillness. His mind skittered like a rat, leaping from Illyrio's muttered promises to Drogo's dark stare to Daenerys' pale hair shining in the torchlight of the Great Hall. Yet beneath it all, the memory of the dream burned steady. The fire had not looked like any hearth flame. It had that unnatural intensity, that sense of purpose that he had once seen in his father's eyes. "Son of fire," he exhaled slowly. In the darkness behind his lids, something glowed. Orange, faintly at first, then brighter. He smelled ash. "Good," Moqorro's voice murmured, like the wind in a chimney. "Now reach." "How?" Viserys whispered. "With your will." It was a stupid answer. Yet when had the world ever given him anything better than stupid answers? He clenched his hands at his sides, nails digging into his palms, and imagined stretching some invisible limb of himself toward that glow. For a moment nothing happened. He could feel Illyrio's restless bulk nearby, the Magister shifting his weight, already bored. Then the air warmed. It was a small thing at first, a breath, a prickle over his cheeks, as if someone had opened a door to a warm room. The glow behind his eyes brightened. He smelled not only ash now, but hot metal and something sharper under it, like lemon on a knife. He lifted his hand without meaning to. His fingers curled, as if grasping a hilt. Somewhere in the room, Illyrio gasped. Viserys opened his eyes. A small, quivering flame hung in the air above his palm. It was the size of a candle flame, no larger. It shook slightly, as if uncertain whether it ought to exist. But it was not attached to a wick or an ember or anything solid. It was a knot of red gold light hovering an inch above his skin, and the heat of it was real. Viserys stared. His heart thudded. He could feel sweat prickle along his spine, but his hand did not burn. The flame brightened when he looked at it. He laughed, a thin, incredulous sound. The flame fluttered. "Enough," Moqorro said quietly. Viserys did not want to let it go. Part of him wanted to feed it, to will it larger, to see how bright it could burn if he pushed, if he poured all his rage and longing into it. He wanted to see Illyrio's house in flames, the city, the world. He unclenched his hand. The little flame winked out. The air cooled. Smoke curled faintly from his palm, leaving no mark on the skin. Illyrio mopped his brow with a lace handkerchief. "By all the gods," he breathed. "My prince, I had no idea." "You did," Viserys said hoarsely. His voice shook. "You must have. Why else bring him?" Illyrio's smile was quick and unconvincing. "I only thought. A little spectacle, perhaps. The Dothraki respect power. A few tricks of flame at the wedding feast." "This is no trick," Moqorro said. He was watching Viserys, not Illyrio. The weight of his gaze made Viserys' skin crawl and stand on end all at once. "When did you first dream?" Viserys swallowed. "A few weeks ago," he said. "Before Drogo came. Before the bargain. Before—" He cut himself off. "Before they gave your sister's womb as the price of his khalasar," Moqorro finished for him. "Do not look surprised, Prince. The Lord of Light's servants listen in the markets and the wine sinks as well as in temples. Word of such a match travels quickly." Viserys' hands clenched again. "It was my idea," he said. "My choice. I will get my kingdom back. I will give them what I must to do it." "Will you?" Moqorro's eyes seemed to deepen. "Is that what the fire showed you?" Viserys thought of the throne of skulls. "It showed me that fire answers me," he said. "That is enough. For now," Moqorro allowed. "But fire always wants more. It eats and eats. It does not know when to stop. A man who would wield it must know that for it." "And you would teach me?" Viserys said, the words coming out fierce with hope and suspicion all twisted together. If the Lord wills, Makoro said. If you are willing to be burned. Viserys remembered no pain when he had touched the coals. He remembered only the joy of being answered. I am the dragon, he said again, more steadily. Burning is what we do. Makoro's mouth curved in. That faint, disturbing almost smile. We shall see. They began that night. The lessons did not happen in a temple. Illyrio would never have allowed a foreign god's altar under his roof. Instead, they took place in forgotten corners of the manse. An empty storage room smelling of dust and dried fruit. A terrace overlooking a neglected garden. An upper chamber where spiders had spun gray curtains between the rafters. Makoro brought a brazier and a bag of charcoal. Nothing more. He made Viserys light the coals the ordinary way, with flint and steel and patience. You must learn the difference, he said, squatting beside the brazier as the first thumb-sized flames took hold, between what fire does for any man and what it does for you. If you think every spark is a miracle, you will never know when a true miracle occurs. Viserys bit back a sharp response, hunching over the brazier. His fingers were already raw from the steel. He had wanted to call the flame as he had before, to show Makoro and himself that he could, but the priest had slapped his hand away. You think you are the only one who has touched the fire? Makoro had asked mildly. Your father lit half a city with his madness. There are men and women in Asshai who walk with embers in their hair. There are shadows in the east made of smoke and rage. Power is not rare, Prince. Wisdom is. Viserys hated him then. Hated his calm, his certainty, his refusal to be impressed. It reminded him too much of kings and lords who had smiled at him in the free cities, listening to him speak of dragons and debts and destiny with bored politeness. It made him want to roar, to show them all, to burn it all down. The flint sparked. A curl of smoke rose. He nursed it with breath and patience until the charcoal caught. The fire in the brazier was ordinary, comforting even. It cracked and popped softly, scenting the air with resin and faint sweetness. Makoro watched him through it. Again, he said, so it went. Daylight hours belonged to Illyrio and the dance of politics. Viserys was paraded before Khal Drogo like a horse for sale, weighed and measured and found lacking. He smiled and bowed and swallowed insults. He endured the Khal's bored stares, the low laughter of his riders when Viserys' words were translated for them. This thin, pale man calling himself king of a land he'd not seen since he was a boy. Daenerys drifted like a ghost on the edges of those gatherings, eyes large and quiet. Viserys rarely spoke to her. It was easier that way. She reminded him too much of all he had not protected. At night, though, when the manse grew quiet and the servants slipped away to their pallets, he met Makoro in hidden rooms and learned the language of fire. It was not words, not truly. There were phrases the priest taught him, syllables in High Valyrian twisted into new shapes, and others in the harsh consonants of Volantis, and some that tasted like smoke on his tongue. But they were keys, not power itself. Power was in the way he reached. Again, Makoro would say, breathe, feel the heat, do not snatch, invite, command. Viserys would close his eyes and feel for the warmth. He learned the way the air shifted above a flame, the way the world smelled when tinder was moments from catching. He learned to call that moment closer, to make a tiny flame bend toward his hand. He learned to pinch it out between his fingers without burning, to make it leap higher with a thought. The Lord of Light grants visions, Makoro said once, as Viserys coaxed a thin line of flame from the brazier to swirl around his wrist like a bracelet. But you have your own fire. It answers you separately from him. That is unusual. I am the dragon, Viserys repeated. He watched the fire dance between his fingers, weaving around his knuckles, and felt something loosen in him. Some knot of humiliation and helplessness he had carried for so long it had become part of his spine. For the first time since they had fled Dragonstone, since he had watched their last loyal men die in a raging storm, he did not feel entirely at the mercy of the whims of fat merchants and foreign Khalasars. Makoro's eyes rested on his face. "Dragons are not the only creatures of fire," he said softly. Remember that. Remember that fire is not your friend. It is a servant at best. Better than being everyone else's servant," Viserys said. Makoro did not contradict him. The night of Daenerys' wedding came hot and heavy, with the sky the color of old bronze over the Dothraki Sea. Viserys rode among the tents on a pale, ill-tempered gelding Illyrio had found for him, sweat soaking the collar of his court-best tunic. He had left Makoro in Pentos. The Red Priest had inclined his head and said that the Lord of Light's hand would be on him regardless. Viserys wished that hand would be on his throat instead, squeezing hard enough to keep the anger in. The Dothraki laughed and shouted and fucked in the tall grass, passing wineskins and tearing at raw meat. He watched Drogo from a distance, the great call atop his stallion, bronze bells chiming in his long black braid, dark eyes following Daenerys as she sat, small and stiff, on a cushion beside him. She was dressed like a princess tonight, in silk and jewels Illyrio had provided, her hair brushed until it shone. She looked like Mother for an instant, as Viserys remembered her from those blurred early years. Then she looked like no one but herself, pale and frightened and alone. He should go to her, he knew, say something kind, reassure her, tell her this was for both of them, that one day she would thank him when they walked through the shattered gates of King's Landing together. Instead, he sat his unhappy horse, stomach churning, and watched the sun go down. When the gifts were presented, the dragon eggs drew a murmur even from the Dothraki. "They are stone, surely," someone said. "Old beyond counting," Illyrio purred. "From the smoking hills of the Shadowlands, older than Ashai, a fitting gift for the blood of the dragon." Viserys held his breath, staring at the glittering ovals in their cloth-lined chest. One black as midnight, with scarlet whorls like frozen flame. One green as the sea with bronze flecks. One pale as milk glass, shot through with veins of gold. They should be mine, he thought. A raw, ugly thought. I am the king. I am the dragon. Daenerys' hands trembled as she touched them. For an instant, he had the irrational notion that they would respond as the embers had responded to him. That flame would leap up around her fingers. Nothing happened. She smiled uncertainly and thanked Illyrio. "Mere trinkets," the Magister demurred. "But pretty ones, yes?" Pretty, Viserys thought that night as the Khalasar prepared to ride, but not useless. Not if he could find a way to wake what slept inside. Dragons had been bred once, hatched, trained. They were not mere legends. They were weapons, and weapons could be forged. The wedding feasts blurred into a chaos of shouting and music and heat. Viserys drank more than he should. Anger and envy and a thread of something new and hot coiling tighter in his gut with each cup. He watched Dothraki men vault onto horses bareback, watched them throw their wives to the ground and take them in full view of the gathering, watched a man's throat opened with a horn spoon over some petty argument and the blood steam on the hot earth. He could feel the fire under his skin the whole time, restless, wanting out. When he finally found himself standing in front of Drogo's high seat, he was not entirely sure how he had gotten there. The call loomed over him, broad-chested and silent. Daenerys sat beside him, hair tangled by the wind, eyes dark. Viserys lifted his cup in a salute that spilled wine down his wrist. "Call Drogo," he said in halting Dothraki. "I am your brother now. You are grateful, yes?" Someone laughed behind him. He ignored it. Drogo's face did not change. He said something low and curt. The translator, a narrow-eyed man with a scar along his cheek, smirked slightly. "The call is honored to have your sister," he said in the common tongue. "He says her hair is long and her hips are good. He says nothing of gratitude." Viserys' cheeks flushed. He heard Illyrio hiss his name somewhere to the side. A warning. He took another swallow of wine. "He has his bride," he said, "but I do not yet have my army." "The call rides where he will," the translator said. "He will ride to Westeros." Viserys stepped closer, his voice rising. "He will cross the narrow sea and help me take back my throne." That was the bargain. This time the laughter was open. "The Dothraki do not sail," someone called in their tongue. "The salt water burns their horses' hooves." It was a jest, and the riders around Drogo chuckled. The fire in Viserys' gut flared. "You mock me?" he shouted. "All of you? You think the dragon is a jape?" Illyrio's hand closed on his arm. "My prince, not here." Viserys shook him off. He could feel it under his skin now, the way he sometimes felt a storm coming in his teeth. His fingers tingled. He imagined Mokoro's calm voice, telling him to breathe, to reach gently. He could not be gentle now. "Tell him," he snarled at the translator, "that if he does not keep his word, I will take my sister back. She is mine. Her womb is mine. Her children are mine. Daenerys flinched. Drogo's dark eyes narrowed. The translator hesitated, then began to speak, his Dothraki fluid and mocking. Viserys understood enough to hear the scorn in it, the way he put a twist on the word king that turned it into something like beggar. The Khal's face did not change as he listened. When the translator finished, Drogo rose with lazy grace. "Run," Illyrio whispered urgently in Viserys' ear. "My prince, you must not." Viserys could not run. His legs were water. His hands were on fire. The world had shrunk to Drogo's looming shape, the muscles in his arms flexing as he reached for something at his belt. A golden belt, heavy with medallions. For an instant, an image flashed across Viserys' mind, so vivid it robbed him of breath. A hall of bone, a throne of skulls, a crown of molten gold poured over a screaming man's head. No, he thought wildly. Not that. Not me. The fire in him surged. Drogo lifted the heavy gold belt in one hand, saying something that made his riders roar with laughter. He gestured toward the nearest brazier, where coals glowed hot under a blackened pot. Viserys moved. He did not think. Later, he would not be able to say exactly what he had done. There was only the memory of reaching, as Mokoro had taught him, not gently but with all the desperate ferocity he had ever turned on his own helplessness. The coals exploded. Fire roared out of the brazier like a living thing. It hit Drogo full in the chest, a sheet of orange and blue that turned his bells and medallions into sudden points of light. The Khal's eyes went wide. He stumbled back, flailing, as his long hair caught, bronze bells bursting like tiny suns. Men shouted. Someone screamed. Another brazier went over in the confusion, spilling embers into the dry grass. Flames leaped hungrily from blade to blade. Horses squealed and reared as the fire licked at their fetlocks. Viserys stood at the center of it, the world narrowing to the heat pouring out of him. It was too much, too bright, but it felt right. The air tasted of metal and fear. His hands were lifted, fingers splayed, as if he were conducting a choir only he could hear. He saw Drogo fall, rolling in the dirt, trying to smother the fire that clung to him like a lover. He smelled the choking stench of burned hair, burned flesh. Dothraki riders rushed in with cloaks, beating at the flames, shouting curses. Someone tried to reach Viserys and recoiled, crying out and clutching an arm burned by nothing visible. "Viserys," Daenerys' voice, came faint and high through the roaring. "Viserys, stop." He could not stop. The fire was a river and he was drowning in it, and some part of him welcomed it. This, at last, was something he could do, something that no fat magister or swaggering Khal could dismiss as the tantrum of a beggar. This was power, and it was his. A strong hand seized his shoulder. For an instant he saw Mokoro's face, though he knew the priest was half a world away. "Not like this," that deep voice said. Whether aloud or only in his head, Viserys could not tell. "Fire that burns all leaves you nothing to rule. Remember what you want, son of fire." What he wanted: the Iron Throne, the red sword of his father's guards, Rhaegar's harp, Daenerys laughing on the walls of the Red Keep, her hair flying in the wind. His fingers curled inward. The fire stuttered. The roaring in his ears faded to a ragged crackle. The flames that had leaped from the braziers still burned in scattered patches, licking at gutted tents and overturned tables. but the invisible force pouring from him ebbed. Viserys sagged. Someone caught him as his knees buckled. The world tilted, spun. He tasted ash and something coppery on his tongue. Voices rose and fell around him. Dothraki babble, Illyrio's frantic pentoshi, Daenerys' sobbing. He saw Drogo on the ground, chest blackened, hair a charred ruin, his face blistered beyond recognition. He was breathing, but the rattling sound of it made something cold slither down Viserys' spine. "You did this," that cold voice whispered. "This is what you are." The last thing he saw before the darkness took him was the reflection of fire in his sister's eyes. It was not awe he saw there. It was fear. He woke to the sound of horses and the smell of dust. The world jolted beneath him with each step of the mount he lay across. His hands were bound. His head throbbed. When he tried to move, something heavy and raw tugged at his shoulders. For a panicked instant, he thought he had been flayed. Then his fingers brushed the stiff, scorched fabric of his tunic, and he realized that the heat he remembered on his skin had not burned him as it had burned Drogo. "He lives," someone grunted in the common tongue with a thick Dothraki accent. "The witch said he would." A woman's voice answered, dry and amused. "I said he is hard to kill. That is not the same as saying he will live long." Makoro, Viserys thought fuzzily. But when he forced his eyes open, the woman riding beside him was not the tall Valentine. She was older, her dark hair streaked with gray, her face lined, her eyes deep as wells. A bone necklace rattled softly around her throat. "Who?" His voice came out a croak. She looked over at him with faint curiosity. "You burn hot, boy," she said in halting Valyrian. "Hotter than any of these horsemen. Hotter than most. I thought they had cooked your wits, but perhaps not." "Where is my sister?" he rasped. "Safe from you," the woman said. He twisted, craning his neck. The Dothraki sea stretched around them in all directions, endless waves of grass under a hard blue sky. A little knot of riders moved ahead, banners snapping. Somewhere among them must be Daenerys, on a fine gift horse, bound for Drogo's nearest Khalasar camp, or perhaps back to Pentos in disgrace. Viserys could not see her. He tried to summon fire. It sputtered at his call, a faint warmth in his belly, but nothing more. He felt wrung out, as if he had poured everything into that one great burst. "What happened?" he groaned. The woman laughed. "You killed a Khal," she said, "or near enough. They will argue whether a man burned still sits his horse in the sky, but either way, his Khalasar is broken. The bells will tell that tale." Her eyes gleamed. "You are a fool, but a useful fool, perhaps." Viserys swallowed against the dryness in his throat. "Who are you?" "Miri Maz-Dur," she said, "of the Lazarene, of the temple of the Great Shepherd, and of certain darker places." Her smile was thin. "You woke the flames in me again tonight, boy. I had thought them almost gone." He remembered dimly, a woman in the chaos of the wedding feast, her eyes sharp and measuring as she watched him. Illyrio had called her a god's wife. The Dothraki had used harsher words. "Why did you stop me?" he whispered. Her brows rose. "Stop you? If I had not pulled you from that circle of fire, you would be ash now." Her glance sharpened. "Or you might not. That would have been interesting to see." The horse stumbled slightly. Viserys' stomach lurched. "Where are you taking me?" he asked. "Away from the men who would have cut your balls off and fed them to their horses," Miri said. "Some wanted to tie you to a stake and see if you burned. Others wanted to sell you for your pretty hair." The girl begged. "Daenerys." His throat closed around her name. "She begged hard," Miri said. "For your life, for you not to be brought near her, for you to be sent to the ends of the earth." She gave him a sideways look. "She is afraid of you now, boy. She is not wrong to be. You are touched by strong things, and you wear them like a child wearing a sword twice his height." He swallowed. "She is my sister, and I am the mother of mountains. Blood is nothing," Miri said sharply. Then she shrugged. "Still, I owed her something. She will need a brother in this world, if she lives." a different brother than the one you have been." Viserys felt the words like blows. "I am who I am," he said dully. "Not entirely," Miri said. "The flames in you can be banked or they can be fanned. Today they were fanned by wine and pride and insult. Another day, who knows?" He licked his cracked lips. "You will teach me?" Miri barked a harsh laugh. "Teach you? I am a cow god's woman, boy. My gifts are healing and blood, not fire. No, I will take you somewhere your kind are made. Then the Lord of Light, or your dragon gods, or whatever howling thing you pray to, can finish you." "Where?" He croaked. "To the shadow of the east," she said. "To temples where men stare at flames until they forget they had eyes. To places where the night is so thick the stars themselves burn dull. To Volantis, perhaps, if we live. Volantis, where Makoro had come from." Viserys closed his eyes. His last memory of Pentos was Drogo's blackened face, Daenerys shrieking his name, Illyrio sweating and shouting orders, Dothraki blades flashing in the firelight. He had fled exile into something stranger and more dangerous than he had ever imagined. "I am the dragon," he thought faintly, as the horse plodded on under him. "The fire answers me." The thought was as much prayer as boast. It would be many months before he saw Daenerys again. By the time Viserys reached Volantis, he no longer dreamed only of the Hall of Bone. The voyage itself was a blur of sickness and fever. Miri sold the horses for passage on a trader bound down the Rhoyne, then another that hugged the coast eastward. Viserys spent most of it retching over the rail or burning under linen sheets, his skin alternately clammy and hot, his dreams thick with smoke. Sometimes he saw King's Landing, the Red Keep looming over a river of blood instead of the Blackwater. Sometimes he saw Dragonstone drowned in a tide of molten rock. Once he saw Daenerys standing in a circle of fire, unburnt, three shadowed shapes crouched at her shoulders that might have been cats or dragons or something else entirely. He woke from that one with his heart pounding, his hands clawing at empty air as if he could seize the vision and drag it into the waking world. Miri watched him coolly through it all. She tended his fevers with stern efficiency, forcing bitter draughts past his lips, smearing his chest with pungent ointments that stung his eyes. When he muttered of fire, she listened without comment. At night she lit a small flame in a shallow iron bowl and sat before it, chanting softly in a language he did not know. The fire in the bowl never seemed to burn down. It glowed with a steady, unnatural light, casting odd shadows on the cramped cabin walls. "You are not a priest of their red god," he said once, voice thick with exhaustion. "No," Miri agreed, "but fire listens to more than one name." Volantis rose from the river like a dream of old Valyria, all black stone and red banners and the constant, restless murmur of slaves. Two great black walls, built in some lost age by dragon lords, cut the city into three. The river ran between them, clogged with ships. On the eastern bank, temples soared and towers rose, their reflections trembling in the water. On the western, crowded tenements leaned like tired men. Bridges of black stone arched over the water, carved with dragons and strange beasts. "The first daughter of Valyria," Miri said, as their small boat nosed toward a crowded dock. "Here they paint their faces orange and talk of chains and freedom in the same breath. Here the fire burns in many houses." He saw it as they neared the quay. Everywhere, it seemed, flames burned, braziers on balconies, torches in doorways, great bonfires in temple courts. The air smelled of incense and river mud and hot metal. Makoro found him within a day. Viserys was standing on a bridge, staring down at the greasy water sliding beneath the carved stone. He had only a few coins left after paying the riverboat captain and Miri's friend, whose name he had not bothered to remember. He had nowhere to go, no manse to claim hospitality in, no Illyrio to flatter and curse in equal measure. He was a king walking the streets like a common trader's son, alone save for a god's wife from a conquered people. He was thinking about stepping onto the parapet when a deep voice said, mildly, "You made quite a mess of that wedding, Prince." He turned. Makoro stood in the shadow of a pillar carved with writhing dragons, his red robe darker than the brick behind him. His gold disc glowed dully in the murky light. Viserys swallowed. "You knew," he said. "You saw." "I saw fire in Pentos," Makoro said. "It flared eastward. The Lord of Light showed me more, after." His eyes flicked to Miri, who stood a little to one side, arms folded. "You have made an interesting friend." "She dragged me away," Viserys said, "from what I did, from what I was doing." "She dragged you toward what you are," Miri said dryly. "Your priest here did the rest, by the look of you." Makoro's gaze rested on Viserys' face. "You found the edge of your power the hard way," he said. "That is often how it goes with fire. You did not burn. That is instructive." "I burned Drogo," Viserys said. The memory made his stomach twist. "I broke his Khalasar. I nearly burned my sister." "You did," Makoro agreed. "Fire is a sword with no hilt. You grasped it barehanded. Now you must learn to hold it without gutting yourself." "I already learned tricks," Viserys said defensively. "I can make little flames, bend them." "You can blunder and hope the flames leap where you wish," Makoro said. "That is not the same as mastery." "Come." "Where?" Viserys asked, though he already knew. He had seen the temple from the river, a vast structure of red and black stone, its roof open to the sky, smoke rising from a dozen great braziers. "To the fire," Makoro said simply. "Where else?" The Red Temple of Volantis was larger than any hall Viserys had ever stood in. Its vaulted ceiling soared overhead, open above a great central brazier where a pillar of fire climbed toward the sky. Smaller braziers burned along the walls, each one tended by a priest or acolyte. The air was hot enough to sting his lungs, full of smoke and the murmur of chanting voices. They led him past kneeling worshippers with shaved heads and tattooed faces, past statues of robed figures with eyes of polished garnet. At the far end of the hall, beneath a massive relief of a burning heart, an old man sat cross-legged on a raised dais, eyes closed, hands res. Ting palm up on his knees. The firelight etched deep lines into his dark face. "Benero," Makoro said softly, "high priest of this temple. He has seen much in the flames." Benero's eyes opened. They were pale and milky, and for a moment Viserys thought he was blind. Then that gaze fixed on him with startling intensity. "The dragon without a dragon," Benero said in thickly accented Valyrian. "The fire without a sword. You come late, boy." Viserys bristled. "I come as I am able," he said. "Yes," Benero agreed, and there was no kindness in it. "You stagger between gods like a drunk between wine sinks. The cow god's woman pulls you from one flame, the Lord of Light's servants from another. You think this makes you special. It does not. It makes you dangerous. Sit." Viserys sat. The stone was hot under his knees. Sweat already trickled down his spine. The fire in the great brazier roared, its flames taller than a man. "You wish to wield fire," Benero said. "Why?" "Because it makes them afraid of me," he thought. "Because it is the only thing in this miserable world that answers when I call. Because it feels like the hand of a god on my throat, and I would rather that than the hand of a fat magister on my purse. Because it is mine," he said aloud. "By blood, by right. They took everything else from me. Not this. Blood," Benero mused. "Right? Old words, old chains." His milky gaze did not waver. "The flames do not care whose blood runs in your veins, boy. They care only that you feed them." Makoro shifted slightly behind Viserys. Miri said nothing. "You saw me call fire in Pentos," Viserys said. "You saw what I did in the Dothraki Sea. You know I can do this." "Any fool can knock over a brazier," Benero said. "You are a fool with unusual luck. The fire likes you. It does not burn you. That is interesting. It does not make you a god." "I do not want to be a god," Viserys lied. Benero's lips twitched. "All kings are liars," he said. "You say you want a throne. You think fire is the road to it. Very well, perhaps it is. But there are two roads fire offers, boy. One leads to ashes. The other leads to... He lifted one hand, fingers spread, palm toward the great brazier. The flames within it dipped, then flared, twisting into a shape that made Viserys' breath catch. For an instant, he saw a city in the fire. Not Volantis. The walls were wrong, the towers at once strange and yet horribly familiar. Dragons wheeled overhead, their shadows cutting across a sky the color of molten metal. People screamed and ran in the streets below as fire spilled from windows, from mouths, from eyes. Then the flames collapsed, becoming only flames again. What was that? Viserys whispered. Benero tilted his head. One of the roads, he said, which you walk is not yet fixed. The fire shows possibilities, not certainties. Remember that. Viserys swallowed. The heat hammered at him. He could feel his own inner fire answering, stirring, as if some great beast had turned over in its sleep beneath his ribs. You will teach me, he said hoarsely. Benero closed his eyes again. Makoro will teach you to listen, he said. Miri Mazdur will see to it you do not kill yourself too quickly. The Lord of Light will decide whether to use you. I will watch the flames. The throne, Viserys began. The throne is a chair of knives in a cold land across the sea, Benero said. There is other work to be done before you go chasing chairs. Sit, boy, breathe, look into the fire and tell me what you see. So Viserys knelt before the great brazier and stared into the flames until his eyes watered and his head swam. At first he saw nothing but fire. It moved and crackled and spat, red and orange and yellow, licking at blackened logs. His eyes hurt. Sweat ran into his mouth, salty and bitter. Do not try to force it, Makoro's voice murmured behind him. Fire does not obey such commands. Let it show what it will. Let it show. Viserys forced himself to breathe slowly, to blink when his eyes burned, to let his anger soften at the edges. He thought of nothing and of everything, of Dragonstone storms, of his father's rants, of Daenerys' solemn little face when she was a child and he had told her stories of knights and dragons to make her stop crying. He thought of Drogo's flesh sizzling under his conjured flame and almost retched. The fire shifted. One moment it was only light and heat. The next it seemed to deepen, as if a skin had been pulled back. Shapes moved in its heart, not made of flame but outlined by it. He saw a ship with torn sails struggling in a storm, lightning cracking over a black sea. He saw a city of bronze domes and green pyramids, its walls crawling with ants that might have been men. He saw a woman with silver hair, standing on a barren plain, holding something in her arms that wriggled and hissed. Daenerys, he whispered. The vision twisted. The woman turned. Her face was wreathed in light. Tiny claws dug into her arm. There was a dragon on her shoulder. Viserys flinched. The flames closed, the images vanishing into crackle and smoke. He heard Benero's breath hiss softly between his teeth. Ah, the high priest said. So, the dragons wake. Viserys' heart pounded. No, he said stupidly. They're stone. They were with Dany at the wedding. Illyrio said. Illyrio says many things, Benero said. The fire says more. The fire says the girl is not so afraid of you as Miri thinks. The fire says she walks in places where dragons stir. The fire says you are not the only one the flames have touched, Prince. Viserys' hands clenched on his knees. Jealousy and awe battled in his chest. They are mine, he said. The dragons. My houses. My birthright. Has that ever stopped the gods? Benero asked dryly. He wanted to reach into the fire and rip the image back, to drag Daenerys out of it, to snatch the tiny dragon from her shoulder and set it on his own. He wanted to see her again, to shake her, to demand that she explain how she had gone where he could not. His hands twitched. The flames leaped in response, a little tongue of blue flickering toward him. Careful, Makoro said, a warning in his tone. Do not let your want devour you. What am I to do? Viserys demanded. tearing his eyes from the brazier. Sweat ran down his temples. He felt like a man half-cooked. Sit here and look while she plays at dragons? Play, Bonero said softly. Yes, the girl plays with dragons. You play with fire. The white cold gathers in the far north while you both play. But games can burn cities if you throw them hard enough. Viserys stared at him. Words like white cold slid past him. He cared only for the immediate, for the heat in his veins and the picture of his sister with fire made flesh. I will not sit, he said. I will act. I am not a priest. I am a king. So you keep saying, Bonero murmured. His closed eyes looked almost amused. Very well, dragon. Go build your throne. But remember this. His voice hardened, gaining a weight that made Viserys' bones vibrate. If you raise an empire of fire in Essos, it will not be only your own people you burn. The flames you send across the sea may not stop where you wish. The fire will take all you feed it and ask for more. Viserys rose. The heat of the brazier pressed at his back. The inner fire in him burned hotter still. He felt lightheaded and electric, as if he might float off the floor or burst into sparks. Mokoro walked beside him as he left the inner hall, Miri a few paces behind. You are very quiet, he said to her. Miri snorted softly. I am counting, priest. Counting. The number of ways this boy might die, she said. It used to be a short list. Now it stretches. Her dark eyes flicked to Viserys. Give me your hands. He hesitated, then held them out. She took them in her own, her fingers rough and calloused. She turned his palms up, traced the lines with a dirty nail. Many burns, she muttered. Most not on your skin. Mokoro watched, expression unreadable. You will lead men, Miri said at last. Not because you are wise, because you burn, and they will gather like moths. You will hurt them, some you will help. You will break chains and forge others. You will always think you are doing one while you do the other. Viserys jerked his hands back. You see all that from some lines? He scoffed. No, Miri said. I see it from your eyes. The lines just give my tongue permission. She shrugged. Do what you like, dragon boy. Just remember who dragged you out of the fire the first time. He did remember. He remembered the feel of her hand on his shoulder, the way the raging heat had flickered at her touch. He remembered Daenerys' voice begging for his life. I will not forget, he said. He meant it in that moment. In the months that followed, Viserys began to build his burning empire. It began small, as empires always do. Volantis seethed like a pot left too long over the fire. Its black walls and red banners disguised the rot within. The endless grind of slaves at the oars of ships and in the fields beyond the city. The cruel whims of triarchs who painted their faces one color or another and called it principle. The growing murmur of unrest among the lowborn and the freedmen who worshipped at the Red Temple and listened to Bonero's thunderous sermons about the night and the promised savior. The priest spoke often of a prince that was promised, a warrior reborn in smoke and salt to lead the people against the darkness. Bonero's gaze turned toward the east when he spoke of that prince. Rumor said he had seen a woman in the flames, a silver queen with dragons at her command. Viserys listened to those sermons from the shadows and clenched his fists until his nails cut his palms. They speak of her, he said to Mokoro one night, as they stood on a terrace overlooking the temple courtyard. Of Daenerys, they say she will break the chains. The fire shows many faces, Mokoro said. The prince that was promised may be a prince or a princess, or neither. Prophecy is a riddle men warp to suit themselves. They will follow her, Viserys said. These slaves, these freedmen, they will call her savior. Where does that leave me? Where you have always been, Mokoro said. Between fire and throne. The question is which you choose. Viserys laughed. Harsh. Why not both? He had already begun to gather his own followers, though he did not call them that. A few were even slaves, slipped out from their masters' houses on pretexts. Viserys did not ask too closely. They were eyes and ears, hands and muscle, and he needed all of those. He did not call them disciples. He called them brothers. That seemed to please them. Brothers, he told them, standing in a dim warehouse smelling of fish and tar. A dozen faces turned up to his in the flickering torchlight. I was a slave once, as you are now, a slave to fat men's tables, to the whims of kings who were no kings, to exile, to fear. But I found fire. I found the power that was ours by right all along, and I will break my chains. I will break yours with mine. Break the chains, they murmured, some of them making the sign of the burning heart, others the old Valyrian gesture for the three-headed dragon. Many did both, fingers twitching between symbols as if they could not decide. We will burn the old order, Viserys went on, his own voice surprising him with its strength. He triarchs, the slavers, the men who sit in their towers and eat fat while you bleed. We will build something new from the ashes, not just in Volantis, everywhere, an empire of flame that no one can put out. The words thrilled him. He believed them in that moment. He saw them as he spoke, a great tide of fire rolling eastward and westward both, sweeping away all who had laughed at him, all who had called him Beggar King, all who had said the line of the dragon was ended. He saw himself standing at the head of that tide, not as a madman raving in a hot hall, but as a king, triumphant. They believed him too. He saw it in their eyes. Some were hungry, some were afraid, some burned with a reflection of his own fire. Miri watched from the shadows, her expression unreadable. He did not ask Benero's blessing. He knew better than to chain his plans to any priest's approval. But the high priest did not move to stop him. When the first fires broke out in the warehouses of certain triarchs, when a shipment of slave collars meant for the markets in Astapor went up in a night of sparks and smoke, Benero merely nodded when the news reached him. Flame spreads, he said. We will see where it burns. It was not a clean uprising. Nothing in Volantis ever was. There were riots in the streets, slaves throwing off their shackles, guardsmen beaten and burned. There were quiet murders in shadowed alleys, men who spoke too loudly in favor of the old ways turning up with their throats cut or their houses mysteriously alight. Viserys did not order all of them. He could not have stopped them if he tried. He learned to shape fire on a larger scale in those days. Not only little tricks now, but walls of heat in narrow streets that sent charging spearmen reeling back, tongues of flame that leaped from rooftop to rooftop at his gesture, bonfires that parted like curtains to let his ragged band pass through untouched. He burned men sometimes. He did not always mean to. Rage and fear and the need to prove himself were poor guides. Remember what you want, Makoro told him after a night when half a block of warehouses had gone up, and the weeping of the burned carried even to the Red Temple's high terraces. Do you want them to fear you for a night, or to follow you for a lifetime? Fear is quicker, Viserys said bitterly, rubbing smoke from his eyes. Fear makes for brittle chains, Miri put in. They snap when you pull too hard. So I should be kind, Viserys snapped. I should hold hands and sing while the Triarch's men cut us down? They took my home. They killed my family. They sold you and yours. How many kindnesses did they show? Miri's dark gaze did not soften. You are not wrong, she said. You are merely incomplete. He did not sleep much. When he did, he dreamed of Daenerys more and more. He saw her walking through fire, as before, but the visions were sharper now. He saw the dragons more clearly, one black, one green, one pale gold. He saw cities he did not know, with harbors and pyramids and harpy statues toppled from their plinths. He saw chains breaking, slavers nailed to posts, fire rising from braziers in strange plazas. He woke from those dreams with his heart racing and the sheets twisted around him. She is ahead of you, Benero said one morning when Viserys, exhausted and raw from another night of visions, demanded to know where his sister was. Her path runs through blood and cities and men who think they own the world. Yours runs through fire. You will cross if you live long enough. I will take her dragons, Viserys said. Perhaps, Benero said, or she will take your fire. The flames do not say which would be worse. Volantis did not fall. Great cities never do, not all at once. Cracked. One of the Triarchs was killed when his villa burned in the night. Another fled to Lys. The third clung on, hiring Braavosi sellswords and bribing priests. The Red Temple swelled with worshippers, its courtyards packed with chanting freedmen and slaves who had slipped their collars. In the smoke of their offerings, Bonero thundered that the night was dark and full of terrors, and that only the Lord of Light's chosen could stand against it. Many thought he meant Daenerys. Many more began to whisper another name. He stood in the flames, they said of Viserys, as the stories grew in the telling. He called fire from the air. They say no sword can touch him. They say he burned a call with a glance. They say he will burn the chains from all our wrists. Beggar King became Fire King in the mouths of men who had never seen Westeros. Viserys Targaryen listened to those whispers and felt them feed the blaze inside him. "This is not your throne," Moqorro warned him, as they watched a procession of freedmen carrying burning brands wind through the streets. "This is a step. A king needs a kingdom," Viserys said. "I will take what is in front of me until I can take what lies beyond." "Be sure you still want the thing beyond when you reach it," Miri said. "Men who walk in fire often find their desires altered." He ignored them both. When the time came for him to leave Volantis, he did so not as a beggar slipping from a back gate, but as a conqueror riding at the head of a column. Not a grand army, not yet, but he had 1,000 men who would kill for him, a few dozen half-trained fire priests who could light the night with him, Miri and Moqorro at his side. The Red Temple's coffers opened enough to fund the purchase of ships. The docks burned to ash behind him as he sailed. Men cheered on the quays, and others cursed, and some looked into the flames and saw omens. "Where now?" one of his captains asked, a scarred merman with a broken nose and quick eyes. "North to Braavos? South to Lys?" "East," Viserys said, staring over the prow at the hazy line of the horizon. "To Slaver's Bay." He had seen it in the fire too many times to ignore. The green pyramids, the bronze harp. Yes, the ships laden with chains. And somewhere in that triangle of cruelty and wealth and old rot, a girl with dragons. Daenerys. He did not know if he wanted to save her or conquer her, to forgive her for daring to step into destiny before him or to rip the dragons from her arms. He knew only that their paths had forked too long. The sea wind tasted of salt and smoke and promise. As his ships turned their prows toward the east, Viserys stood at the bow with his hair whipping around his face, the inner fire burning steady in his chest, and thought, "This is mine." Not only the throne he had been promised in 6 languages since he was old enough to understand what exile meant. Not only the Iron Throne in some cold, mist-wrapped land across the world. The smoke rising from Volantis's walls. The men who followed because they feared and believed. The power singing in his blood like a song of dragons. He reached out his hand. A small flame sprang to life above his palm, dancing in the sea breeze. It did not go out. Behind him, the sails filled. The ships of the Burning King sailed east into a dawn the color of old blood. Far ahead, beyond the curve of the world, a girl with silver hair stood on a pyramid's height and looked west, dragons coiling restlessly at her shoulders. In the depths of the Red Temple's great brazier, Bonero watched both fires and prayed that when they met, there would be enough of the world left for anyone to rule.